today, what we're actually going to be talking about might seem a bit boring, but we're going to be talking about registration of documents in Poland, because it does form a part of what we do in a person's application. So before you can apply for a passport, even if you are a citizen, you need a birth and or marriage certificate if you're married. So first of all, hello, Isabella, and thank you for staying up for us. I know it's quite late where you are.
Hello, it's good to be here, and I'm fine with staying late. I actually enjoy doing my work, so I'm happy to talk about these issues.
Excellent. Isabella, a couple of weeks ago, you actually attended a course, and tell us more about what it was, what it covered, and what did you learn there?
So I attended a course about work that clerks of vital registry offices do, and it covered different topics, but what interested me the most was about transcription of certificates, like birth certificates and marriage certificates. And from what I learned, it's actually more and more people are transcribing their certificates. There's a lot of foreigners who are living in Poland or who want to gain their Polish citizenship, and that's why it's actually a topic really important now.
Okay, so let me take you a step back. So already we mentioned that for people that are getting their Polish citizenship, one of the requirements is to register their Polish birth and or marriage certificate. And in practice, what that means is that, let's say you were born in America, Australia, or Canada, the Polish government or the civil registry office, as you mentioned, takes your birth certificate or marriage certificate and transcribes it. So you mentioned, you call that a transcription. So what that means essentially is that they look at your birth certificate and make a copy of it in Polish, as in they register the content at the Polish civil registry office. Is that right?
Yes, that's true. They copy everything like it's in the original and put it into the Polish system.
Right. And it sounds pretty simple, but it is not simple, right? For all kinds of reasons. One is that the documents issued in different jurisdictions will have different content. So in America, even from state to state, they look very different, including marriage certificates, which vary from a marriage license, which is just very simple with someone's name, and that's all you have to marry, and other jurisdictions where it's a very detailed document. But essentially what the Polish government do, what they do is they take the content, put it into a format in Poland and produce a birth or marriage certificate, right, for you?
Yes.
Okay, so what would be some of the challenges, apart from the fact that every document is different that arrives in Poland for you? What would be some of the other challenges with birth certificate registration, do you think?
I think sometimes name changes could be problematic because in other countries people sometimes do a name change and it's informal name change. So they don't have any documents. And then when we send a document for transcription, there might be some issues with that. That's why we need to actually hear from our clients what exactly happens, so we can prepare any documents the vital registry office might need.
Right. And I think even a bigger challenge for us, Isabella, and correct me if I'm wrong, is explaining all of this to clients, because they sometimes think that they can send us a scan, and it's like, well, why do you need the original, and why do I need to have an apostille, and why do I need to correct information on my birth certificate? Because often original certificates have errors, right, including spelling or dates. So essentially what we have to do is get it right in terms of content. And then the registry office in Poland requires how do the documents need to be presented?
So the offices, they need to get the original document or certified copy. And the certified copy is like a document given by the registry office that needs to have the signature of the clerk as well as the stamp.
So it can't be a photocopy, it can't be notarized. It does need to be an official duplicate or
Yes.
original document. Okay, so that's number one. That's the challenge number one. The other one, which is, I guess, a little bit controversial and a little bit new, is that Poland does not have an instrument in this process of transcription or registration to register birth certificate of same-sex parents. It just doesn't exist, right?
Yes, it doesn't exist.
So was that something that was covered at the course? What did the instructors say about that?
Well, they said that it's not like it's a more of a new issue. That's why we don't have, like, as you said, the instruments to do this. That's why it's more talked about this. And if anyone wants to register like the child of the same sex couple, the issue is actually like given to the prosecutor's office, so they can register how many people actually do this, so they will know if there's actually demand for this.
Right, so that'll be escalated kind of,
yes.
In a way, yeah. Right.
And also the problem with the acts, the certificate, is that on some foreign acts, there are like parents who are written on the certificate. There's like parent number 1 and parent number 2. While on Polish certificates, it's only mother and father, and that's also the issue.
Right, right. So if the foreign certificate doesn't have all the elements that a registry office needs to be able to transcribe the documents, they just can't do it. So as you said, it could be something as simple as not having the word mother and father on the original birth certificate. And, I think it's fair to say that, a child's welfare and safety is paramount in Poland, but they just don't have a way of doing it, right? So did they talk about maybe that changing sometime soon at the course you attended?
Well, they told us that the government is also like talking about this. They want to actually have some changes, like with the names on the certificates, how to actually define some like parent and mother and father, and this stuff. But it's all like it's in talks, so they are talking about this. We don't know when they will actually act on it and make some changes to the law.
Right, right. Because it goes all the way up to the most important document in the land, and that is the Constitution. So yes. In that document, the family is described in very strict terms. So I think there's like an on-flow effect onto practicalities of something like a birth certificate registration. What about IVF? I think more and more children are born essentially without a father being listed. Is that an issue in Poland when it comes to registration of birth certificate?
It's possible to register act without the father on it. So if there's no father, we can still do it. Like the problem is if there's like no mother, then it's not possible. So certificates without the mother on are not possible to register.
Right, right. Interesting. So everybody in Poland knows, well, that works in this field knows that it's an issue, that it's going to become more and more of an issue. And I think the government's keeping an eye on how many of these cases are actually problematic. Because essentially, if a child is Polish, but you cannot register the child's birth certificate, the child cannot get a passport, they can't get a travel document, right?
Exactly. And it's like the right of the child to get the Polish birth certificate. So they need to do something about this.
Right, right. So we're hoping that they will, but for the time being, again, a child might be a citizen, but not have a birth certificate because of who his parents are. And of course, this is another, perhaps even more controversial topic, and that is marriage. Marriage certificate is also a document that goes through the process of transcription. So if someone is married, before they can apply for a Polish passport, if they are a citizen already, they need to have their marriage certificate registered, right? But it's an issue if it's a same-sex marriage, because why is it an issue in Poland?
Because there's no such a thing as same-sex marriage in Poland.
Right. So they're not, those marriages are simply not recognized yet, although we do know, and of course, Poland's not the only country where that's an issue. There are many other countries in Europe that do not recognize same-sex unions. And there are high-level court cases outside of each country, I guess, where appeals are being lodged for decisions rejecting people's registration of marriage certificate. So if you are in a same-sex marriage, first of all, again, there's no instrument to be able to transcribe it, right, in Poland?
Yes. And actually about the same-sex marriages, during the course, there's also like this case that there was a Polish man who lived abroad and he got married to a man. So they got the marriage certificate and then he died, and his mother wanted to transcribe his death certificate in Polish. So in his death certificate in Poland, it was written that he was married, but there was in the place where you would need to fill the name of the spouse, there was nothing. Because the Polish authorities like couldn't do anything in this place.
Right. And when you are married and apply for your Polish passport, one of the questions on the form is your marital status. So you kind of have to lie if you're married in a, if you were married in a same-sex marriage, because technically you are married, the country where you're married allows for same-sex marriage, but Poland will not accept that. So if you were from a same-sex union, you'd have to say on that form that you're not married. And that's kind of puts everything about you in a limbo. Because jurisdictionally in Poland, there's no way of recognizing your marriage. But in law, in the country of your original citizenship, you are married. So that's pretty challenging in many ways, including the legal way that you've just explained for somebody who is not recognized as being married. So what did the course instructors say about that? Is that likely to change in Poland, do you think, sometime soon, or what do you think will happen? And we, gazing into a crystal ball because nobody knows, right?
Yeah, that's actually difficult to say. I mean, I hope the law will change so people are allowed, because there's more and more people who want to their unions recognized, but you never know with the law.
Yeah. And we'll just have to watch that space. But currently, we just wanted to tell everybody about how it works. We get a lot of questions about this. And sometimes we have very creative solutions about how to handle these things with our clients. But because there are, I guess, deficiency in the law, you could call it, or there are gaps between, different jurisdictions, and, sometimes they're not able to be closed. We do tell people up front that this might be an issue, but of course we'll let everybody know as soon as the law changes, because as you said, there are more and more people in that situation, and particularly the rights of a child, which are very fiercely protected in Poland. We feel that it'll, those rights will start triggering different instruments from the Polish lawmakers to enable to create those documents. That I guess that's the sense you got from the course as well, yeah?
Yeah, I think they're talking more about issues, child rights.
Okay. And the other thing I think they talked about, and those of you that work with us will know, that everything in Poland is done on paper still, right? Anytime you need to do anything official, we need to give them a hard copy. It needs to be notarized, it needs to be signed, it needs to be with an apostille. Did they talk about that changing in Poland? Are we going electronically anytime soon?
Yes, there's this digitalization of actual all this process. The Polish government wants to move more to the internet zone. And we already have this system called ePUAP, where citizens can register and do some of their do some of the stuff that they want through the internet, like get their copies of birth certificate, but not everything is possible. And that's why there is going to be more digitalization. And with that, we will get like new systems. They're going to introduce new systems, but it's like a long-term process. Next year, they're going to introduce new systems, but on governmental level, so only for the governmental organizations. And I think in 2 years, they are going to move to the more like territorial governments, and later everyone will use them, but everything's in process. So we will first we will see how the government handles it and how it will work.
Right, because it would be a very, very big project to undertake. And I think there are all kinds of considerations like privacy and data protection. And I think because in Poland still everything's on paper, it's also a shift in people's minds, or a mindset shift, because there is this, I don't know, would you say that there's like a bit of mistrust from the government officials, like unless they see something on paper, they don't really believe that it exists? What would you say about that?
Yeah, I feel like it's like that if you see something on paper, you trust it more.
Okay, but of course, yeah, with technology, I think and systems like blockchain, and there are lots of ways that data could be protected better than on paper. But I think what you're saying is that they're looking into making things more efficient and digitalize as many things as they can. And I think, go.
So yeah, I think they want it to be like more efficient, and not only efficient, and it could be also like shorter. So the whole process of, for example, getting a copy of birth certificate would be shortened than like doing it through the internet, than like sending documents.
Because in many countries, like in Australia, for example, when you I don't know, apply for a visa, or want to rent a house or apply for a bank loan, everything actually happens electronically. We have systems like DocuSign. In fact, government officials make it a priority for you to file things electronically. Less and less, papers used. At Polaron, Kinga has worked very hard at making our office paperless. We still have some papers, but only because they're for Poland. And in other jurisdictions, we just supply everything electronically. So that'll be an interesting shift. And talk to me, Isabella, about EPUAP. It's something you mentioned earlier. So it is a way of each citizen, I guess, having an electronic way of talking to the government. Is that right? How would you describe it?
Yeah, it's like a communication device for citizens to connect with public authorities, and everyone can join it and have their account on it. And then, for example, now you can get a copy of your birth certificate through this device.
So in other words, it's a way of communicating. It's like an inbox essentially, right? So
yeah.
To be able to register, you need to be a citizen of Poland. Is that right?
Yes, you need to be the citizen of Poland.
And then you're given essentially an inbox that enables you to communicate with government officials about different things. So that could be what? That could be your taxes. It could be your social security. It could be, as you say, your birth certificate. So it's just an electronic way of communicating with the government. And my understanding is that everybody complains and hates it, right? Is that right about EPUAP?
Yeah, people don't like it too much. That's why I think they are introducing new systems.
because it's a bit clunky to use. It's a bit difficult to use. So the way it was designed, it's not very user friendly. So I think at the course they talked about replacing that system by 2029. Yeah, in the next few years.
Yes.
Yeah, but that's going to be a big project and a very big task, I think.
And for now, a PUAP is still gonna be there while the other two are introduced. So, and they're not gonna be synchronized. So it also will be a bit problematic using too many systems.
But I guess, you know, Poland's got 38 million citizens, and, you know, to have a transition from basically paper-based system with everything. And we're talking about, you know, from birth to death, everything's on paper. That's going to be really a massive task, and it'll revolutionize, I guess, the way that, you know, the systems and the governments work. Were at the course, were people looking forward to it, or were they a bit skeptical, do you think?
I would say like 50-50. Some of people were like a bit skeptical, but some of them were like happy to see that it's gonna change, that they will have like less documents to work with.
Okay. So, Isabella, you've covered a lot of ground today. Just a quick summary again from you, and you work with another colleague of ours, Gosia, and your job and Goshia's job is basically to help people register vital records. A vital record is what? What would you describe as a vital record, just to summarize?
Well, vital record, I think it's a document sorry, that registers like the most important
information
information and like occurrences in life, such as birth, marriage, or death. Yeah.
So that could also be a change of name, etc., some other documents. And it just means that whenever you have a document created in your jurisdiction, Poland's got a process of transcribing it. And I think Stephanie's sent us a question, so let us have a look. The question from Mike is there somewhere to determine if I qualify for dual citizenship, any sites to look up my father's immigration records? Okay, so that question is a bit different to what the topic is at hand. But yes, we can post some links for you, Mike, to look at, and some of these resources, some of these databases are online. But in order to determine whether you are a citizen or you can get Polish citizenship, the only authority that can tell you is the Polish government. So there's a process of applying. And guess what? It is on paper. Although they've introduced a new electronic system of submitting applications. Are you familiar with it, Isabella, at all? With the voivodeship office or not? Have you seen it in action?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. Well, I have. And what it is, so normally what happens when you apply to have your citizenship confirmed currently is you have to take a file physically to the voivodeship office. So it includes, you know, a paper form, all your documents, everything has to be signed, etc. So the voivodeship office, which is the office that processes citizenship applications, maybe about 6 or 8 weeks ago, introduced an online system. But it's very limited in its scope. So for example, if you are representatives of someone like we are, we can't submit it. Everything's in Polish as well. And again, it's a system that's a little bit clunky. So I think as Poland moves into digitalization, more and more systems will be, you know, kind of difficult to use because they need to fine tune it and refine it. So just going back, okay. So vital records are any records with key information, important information, birth certificate, marriage certificate, death certificate, change of name, any document like that. It is handled in Poland, but by which office again, Isabella?
Vital registry offices.
Okay, and each, yeah, go.
Yeah, and each city has their own vital registry office.
Okay, so each city would have a separate office that takes care of registration of, let's say, births and marriages and deaths. And we deal with a couple major ones, is that right? We often work with
Yes.
Warsaw, that's the central office, and they're very knowledgeable, I think, about foreign documents.
Yeah. And also if there's some, if we are not sure about something, or there is a certificate that looks a bit problematic to us and we are not sure about something, it's better to send them to Warsaw because they can help. They have like more information, definitely more knowledge about this.
And they're very experienced and helpful. And in terms of how long it takes, Isabella, how long would it take, would you say, that a registration of a birth certificate, let's say, takes?
In Warsaw, I would say it takes definitely much longer than in other offices. For example, in Wrocław, it would take about like 30 days. But in Warsaw, I would say more like 60 to 90 even, because they deal with a lot of documents.
With a lot more documents and very complex documents, I guess, because they would be dealing with lots of foreign documents that are getting transcribed. Okay. And in terms of your and Gosha's work, this is what you do. You would be receiving documents and preparing them for filing. And sometimes something that seems so simple can become a bit complicated. And for example, it could be a letter in someone's name, right?
Yes, that's really complicated.
And you wouldn't think that one letter can cause confusion, but it can. So, for example, if your name doesn't have a Polish character in it, they might find it problematic to register. So maybe not even your own name, but your father's or mother's. Let's say it was Elżbieta, which got a dot over the letter Z or Z. And you have foreign documents without that dot, then it causes lots of issues for the Polish government, because it's not an identical transcription and they can't move forward with that because of that little dot, right?
Exactly.
Okay. All right, Isabella, I know it's late, so I will let you go, but I think we have maybe a couple of other questions. Let me just see if we've got anything else that people want to know. Let me just take a look. Okay. Yes, so the other question we have is about corrections and determination of content and reconstruction of birth certificate, Isabella. So what I mean by that is that often if your ancestors' birth certificate doesn't exist, there's not much we can do about it. But there are procedures in the Polish law where a birth certificate could be recreated or reconstructed. Is that right?
Yes, it's possible.
So what does that mean in practice? The Polish government will look at the circumstances of what happened. So this can only apply if someone had a birth certificate, but it was destroyed, right?
Yes. Sometimes, like, for example, there were like natural disasters, so the certificates could be burned, or there was a flood, and even though someone was registered, their acts are no longer here.
Okay. So in a case like that, what we would have to essentially do is say, okay, this document existed, that was the content, please recreate it, because we know we have proof that it existed. And in that case, the Polish government can recreate the content, or they can confirm the content of something that existed, provided it existed and provided we can prove it, right? But there are other situations where we just either cannot find it or cannot prove that it existed. In that case, the Polish government cannot create a document like that, can they?
Yeah.
So we kind of, that's the end of the road for us, if that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And okay, what about the change of content? Yes.
Yeah.
What does that mean? What do we mean? Yes. What does that mean? What do we mean by that?
For example, we get the birth certificates, and the name is different than the name on the marriage certificate. Someone gets married later and the names differ. then we can make corrections. So the name on the both certificates is the same.
Right, because it's important that all your documents are uniform and have all the correct names. And the other important thing is that they need to match your home country's documents. So if you have a passport, let's say issued in America, you can't have a different name in Poland. So, you know, somebody may have been born under the name of Michael and then they informally become Mike. Poland does not understand how you could do that. It's just like, it does people's heads in, like, how can you have, you know, two different names on two different documents? So it's important to get it uniform across all the documents that you hold. And I think we have another question from Mike about Ellis Island. Look, Ellis Island is definitely very, very helpful if you start looking for your family documents. And they do have a comprehensive database on people arriving in America. Several million people arrived through that particular entry point. So if you're looking into your family history, that's a really good place to start. All right, Isabella, we've kept you up about each other's. That's a very interesting things. We're looking forward to these changes because I think the lawmakers need to kind of keep up with what's happening in the society. And I think in Poland, there's like a quite significant gap between what's happening out there in society and what the government can do, or government officials, as you say. So thank you for your time this morning. And if anyone has questions, they can always reach out to you, Ogosha, of course. But thank you for attending the course. It was in Poznan. It was, I think, 4 or 5 days. Is that right? It was a long, yeah.
Yeah, it was the longer one.
Right. And they gave you a book, did they not?
Yes,
what
I
book
got
did you
books.
get? What book did you get? Aha.
So I got this small book, and it's actually like a code, like a family code, and it's also about the family and the guardianship, and it also has some laws about the Civil Registry Act certificate.
Oh, there you go. Well, now we know that there's a special book about it.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll let you go. Thank you so much for your time, Isabella. Thanks, Stephanie, for running the session. And we'll see you when we see you next, Isabella.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and have a lovely day.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.